And Mr. Bravo, Ms. Autry, you guys know how I am with agendas. But if you ever want to do the introductions and the kind of the call to order, please do so. I'm just kind of Mr. Agenda when it comes to those kind of things. So whatever you want to do. Okay. All right. Well,
hey, Derek's on here. I'm trying to get my computer up so I can do the camera, but I'm on the phone line.
All right. Welcome, Dr. Hall. Welcome to the February 17th Finance and Capital Management Committee meeting. We have a fairly short agenda tonight, but we had scheduled 2 this month to really put into place the strategic plan and put some dates and times and structure around some of our action items. I really would like to finish that up tonight and publish this for the board come Monday for our report out. And before we get going, any other additions, deletions to the agenda? Ready to go? All right. Let's jump right into it, and I will begin by start to show my page for the Akron Public Schools advocacy page. I think you are all, if you've had a chance to check it out, we're really making headway here. It's pretty exciting work. And my entire window I'm sharing. All right. Everybody's following along. You can see we can get to our advocacy hub pretty quickly. And our advocacy hub's growing. On the left-hand side of the toolbar, you see we have links to resources, find your school representative, House Bill 920, some of the basics of why school funding is the way it is, legislative overview, and we have levy information. And I think Dr. Hall pointed out the legislative overview and tracking tools. We're updating these almost monthly now. So I'd like to share one of those with you now. I think Ruth just added these today. So right there is our first one. If you're seeing that, I'll zoom in there. House Bill 1, the Fair School Funding Plan, now sponsored by Representative Calendar and Sweeney. On that note, I'll be in Columbus next Tuesday and Wednesday providing testimony. It was going to be today, but it got delayed with the snow early this week. So next Tuesday and Wednesday, first proponent testimony for House Bill 1. I'll be describing the base costs component and the relationship of base costs through the rest of the mechanics of the Fair School Funding Plan. I'll send you a link if you want to tune in. You get bored during the day and you want to watch some school funding work at the State House. And then there's also hyperlinks throughout, and I'll just click on a hyperlink. You can see our 2 new sponsors from Cupp and Patterson and Shearer prior to Jamie Calendar and Bride Rose Sweeney. And then it's got the legislation text, and it's got all the, I would call them the appropriation documents to accompany that. We've got levy information that we've uploaded.
Hey, Mr. Pendleton, knowing that it always is subject to change, even down to the last minute, will you at least let us know when you're expecting to testify? That way, if we do want to tune in, I've tuned in plenty of times when I know something's coming up, just to leave it while I'm working.
I'll send you a link. Right now, we are due to tee off at 10:15 on Tuesday morning. As far as I know, I'll be the first to testify to set up the overall House Bill 1 plan, the relationship of base cost, and then to describe in detail the base cost.
Are you starting out just in Finance Committee?
It is in the House Finance Committee.
Okay.
Clicking through a couple more resources here on the advocacy page, giving as much information to see Finance Subcommittee, see Finance, And hopefully those come through to anybody that wants to learn more about that, watching a finance committee meeting. And then really what we're working on now, and I know Ruth had some conversations today with staff about our conversations last finance committee meeting about the click here component of our advocacy pages. And we're working on that, how folks can participate. I think this is shaping up well. If you have additions to this, please let us know. Kind of go on the webpage, tell us what else you think. Mr. Bravo, or is that from prior?
No, that's current.
Okay.
And if I'm not, hopefully I'm not a little choppy. I am actually trying to prioritize my web or my internet as we speak, because you guys were getting a little choppy. So I didn't know if it was me or you.
Okay.
I noticed two things that might just be somewhat easy additions for right now would be some information on our state school board, and especially now with Tim Miller being on our representative on the state school board, might be good to have that information up there, as well as the governor's office. I mean, those are really the three, between the legislature, the state school board, and the governor's office. I mean, that's really where a lot of our attention is throughout the year. It might be nice to have the other two up there as well somewhere.
I'll add those. I'll add hyperlinks, probably would be the best way to do it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Give good additions. I'm taking notes. All right. Anything else on the advocacy page? Stay tuned. We'll put that on our strategic plan to say we'd like to have some resources or click here resources. I would say by end of first quarter. I think that's completely reasonable. I really do want us to get into a habit. If you notice, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on the strategic plan. It's a bit selfish, frankly, because I need to know to prioritize, to say, okay, this is, but it's also a feedback mechanism for me to say, this is a reasonable goal that I have, that I think from talking with internal staff members, we can get that done. And so I really do believe that advocacy page and the click here resources, letters to representatives, Ruth's working on a master spreadsheet that lists every school district in Ohio and their Senate and representative. There's not a comprehensive tool out there. There's a couple different ones, but she's blending them. So if we want to direct a letter to the Fair School Funding Plan senators and the Senate Finance Committee, we can click on a link and then it's going to direct that message just and target them, right? By committee, by one of the Senate districts. If we want to target school districts to get engaged, our partners there, it's going to be a pretty nice tool. I think she'll be done here in a couple of days on that. All right.
Such good work. That's wonderful news. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's all the credit goes to Ruth.
Yes.
She's really, she's listening now on the live stream, taking our notes. We revisit the notes the next day, and then she's on it. So really appreciate, Ruth, your support.
Mhm.
You saw the legislative tracking tools we've included there. We'll keep those populated and keep them coming. I'd like to turn to the strategic plan and share the screen and spend the rest of our time really talking about the strategic plan. Let me share my screen again. All right. So everyone's seeing the strategic plan. I see you in there as well. Thank you. I see some folks took some edits to the goals, objectives, and strategies. Please keep those coming. And again, I think this is a nice, robust tool that we can report out for Monday's board meeting, as well as the 2 committee meetings that we had and the notes. So we should have a pretty robust update there. And I can't see you since I'm sharing that screen, but if you wouldn't mind, I'd really like to go one by one through these, put these responsibility target dates, resources if needed, and come to some consensus around this. We've been talking about an equity dashboard or a spending per pupil. We've been talking about building profile reports. That's kind of all in there. And we have been talking that we've got to put something down on paper to move forward from. And what I have said that we could do by the end of first quarter, and so that leaves us about a month and a half, is a spending per pupil. And we may be able to normalize that. I know we've talked a lot about removing some of the weighted components of where senior teachers or expense may be, where special education units may be, or more expensive programs like the I Promise School based on donations given. So I think creating an equity dashboard, like your feedback here, I'm going to add to this. I'm going to say per pupil spending in chart form. That shows by spending component. And what I mean by spending component is whether it be special education, whether it be funds from private sources, but show that average per pupil. And I think some of you saw that CUP report, which is that really high level report that we showed last week. Hopefully that got the creative juices flowing about questions to ask, dashboards to write, kind of thing. But if we show expenditure by per pupil and take it from the filter of equity, I think it's going to start to flesh out where we're spending, where we're directing monies, where our Title I spend is, our non-Title I spend, our special education units. All of that data exists. Ruth and I were talking just prior to the meeting about Forecast 5 and trying to tweak these graphs. As you can imagine, when you list our 20 plus elementary buildings and our 9 high schools and 9 middles, as the smaller groupings are a little easier to follow. But let me stop for a second, get your thoughts on this per pupil chart form that shows expenditure per pupil by spending component.
And where will we overlay? So if you said like expenditure per pupil by spending component, by building, by grade level, by whatever that, or by grade band or whatever else that is, okay.
You got it.
I think we would want, if we're looking at the district, we're looking at the district as a whole, and we want to see that data broken out, I think, as a whole, like by district, here's what we spend per pupil in these components. But we also then want to drill down a little bit further to the building and grade level. I don't know if there's anything else. I like that too.
Hey, Ryan. I got my camera working now, so I'm just now being able to view this. So
Please.
It's just showing per pupil spending. So, Ryan, to that point, though, are you going to be able to normalize that for accounting for the tenure of the teacher?
I would say at a macro level, yes. I'll be able to say, add in a component of teacher level seniority, add in a macro component to that, yes. What we can also do is, we know that obviously that student teacher ratio across the district is a constant. We can also remove, remember from one of our first meetings, the 100s and the 200 level objects are salary and benefits.
Right.
We can also remove that from the equation and just list supplies, materials, purchase services, and capital. So there's a couple different ways that we can do that at a macro level.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to kind of be able to see both. So basically, okay, so if I pull out teacher seniority, what's it look like? If I add it back in, how does it look? Because to that point, we may find that when you add that the reason why it might look skewed is solely due to, or due in large part because of the difference in teacher seniority, right? So if I have a book bill average years is 7 years teaching and average years is 17, that's 10 years of step raises and yada, 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 that are going to be baked into that number. So it'd be nice to be able to kind of look at it both ways, to that point. And then also too, I'd be interested to see, for our specialty schools, like for example, at Miller South, and I promise, what do our expense per pupil look like? So I use I promise school as an example, but Miller South would be our STEM school, right? So so at our STEM school, what is spent per pupil like at our STEM school? And again, we may find out that it's it may be the exact same, right? Again, I think that that's a part of the story. I think that we've got to be able to tell. Having said, hey, we've checked that box, we've looked at it, and because I know that I got an email from a couple parents about Miller South recently, really kind of asking me to challenge, or really challenging us on the enrollment process over there, right? Saying, well, gosh, why don't we have more district kids, attending there? Why, so again, and I don't have all the steps, so I can't really reply intelligently, to that line of thinking, because I don't know, what the breakdown is between district and non-district kids, and if there's a process over there that makes it, easier. But the reason why I mention it is because, if it is easier for out of district kids, to matriculate to Miller South, and we're spending more dollars per pupil over at Miller South, then basically we have a process that is contributing to, I'll use the term horizontal inequity, right? So anyway, so again, just some thoughts.
I think the building level dashboard, Dr. Hall, maybe comes first. And this is where Mr. Bravo is.
Agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
Focused.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Because right. Because the next step is looking at, all right, now that I have my per pupil spend, once we, and again, I get that's a big lift. But once we have that, then you start looking at outcomes, right? You start looking at differences in, testing performance, things like that. So, to really kind of get to, and this is why when we had the I Promise meeting last week, I was really, I told Keith, Lichty that I said, hey, going to be in touch to ask for more information. I get that the last year's been tough because of COVID, but again, it's something that we've got to start to look at, like how does the differences in spend, how does that impact outcomes? Does it?
Right.
We assume it does, but just, as I say, the proof of the pudding is in eating of it, right? So, so does it actually translate into better outcomes? Anyway, sorry, that was my.
No, that's good.
That's what happens when I, when I'm on the phone for the first 10 minutes and can't do the materials. You get that sort of stream of conscious technique.
This is exactly what I'd like to do with the strategic plan. This is very helpful. Any other thoughts and comments about the building level dashboard, the equity dashboards, kind of our first steps? I filled out the rest of this responsibility chart. And then we'll do
that. Diana,
yes.
Actually, and along the same lines as the specialty schools, I'd like to see our schools that are, I guess, on this voucher list, or schools that have been in priority status, and
Got it.
To see if there's something that we can gauge from that data as well.
We put this up top. I like that.
And Ryan, while you're doing that, let me just ask you a question. You may be going to address this later on, so I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse. But I know we talked about the differential in spending as relates to athletics. And being that athletics is the road to opportunity for a number of our kids, if there are significant differentials between clusters and schools in how we fund and support our athletics, again, that is also in an equity that we would want to be able to have some visibility to and be able to speak to as well. So again, that might be what you've got in here, but I just want to make sure that we don't lose that, especially since we get asked for athletics funds. At least in this last year that I've been on the board, I feel like we've had requests for athletic funds any number of times in the last year for certain schools. So
that's right. No, so the accounting system should be robust enough that we can break it down by this function code in all of these areas. The data exists. I'm in our internal conversations. I wish you could be a part of also, because when we talk about this and we talk about the outcome of this equity dashboard, building level dashboard, we've got all the data. We've had up to this point, or at least the past decade, we haven't had a medium in which to display them. And now we have Tableau and Forecast 5, and it's a process of making this all work well together. So we're close, but I still do believe that we'll be able to take our first version of this off by the end of March.
Right. I know we're on the first one. We still have a few to go. I wanted to add one more comment that between what Ms. Autry said and what Dr. Hall said reminded me of something else too. There's going to need to almost be some responsible reporting too when we get all of these data, because there's going to, without some context behind some of the numbers, it can, we're just going to want to know, it's kind of like footnoting on your annual financial statements or something. We're really going to know, what are some of the reasons why we might see some of the numbers we're seeing. Clearly at a school where we're providing more wraparound services or something, or where we have a higher concentration of special ed, or where we're going to want to know that. And that's more qualitative than quantitative. And we're just going to want to have a place for that somewhere, so that when Ms. Autry or myself or somebody is pulling up these numbers, we can quickly see, oh, that's why we're seeing a higher, that's why we're seeing higher per pupil spending here in this particular area, because we know this about the programs that are there. You're not going to see any, swimming funding at East because we don't have a pool,
Correct.
Or whatever it is. But I think you get what I'm saying.
This will help jog my memory when we do this. Okay, that's perfect. All right, anything else on the building level dashboard, equity dashboard? All right, let's move on to ESSER funds and the responsibility of ESSER funds, the use and reporting of that. I'm going to have that be a joint responsibility. I'll put it Finance Committee. I think we've done a great job of this, and I'm going to say monthly. Target date, monthly, status, resources, no new resources needed. And I'll continue to update the memos. Just a quick question before we move on. Are the memos helpful? Can you give me some feedback on the memos? Because what I say is we've spent 70% of ESSER 1 next month, starts our ESSER 2 draws, those kind of things. Or is it more helpful for me to do those in my finance updates during the board meetings?
Either works for me. I mean, I think it's helpful, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm either or.
Well, I think as long as we're reporting on these monthly, that's an important point. All right, advocacy page populated with information for staff and the public. I think we've hit this. If maybe we're 80% of the way there on the advocacy page. So let me see what our headings are. I can't see those. So responsibility, target date, status. I'll give it a 80% complete unless somebody wants to push back on that. And I think we had a end of first quarter too. And this is finance and tech. Very good. This next one, I think we'll have lots of robust conversation come Monday. Create the framework for reporting the investment of major technology initiatives under the current remote learning environment. The reason I say robust conversation is the return to in-person learning conversation. We've had a one-to-one environment for at least 5 years. And so create the framework for reporting the investment of major technology under. And so we had a conversation last finance committee. Can someone give me a little bit more detail regarding this one? Framework for reporting investment, major technology. I'm going to have to put a question mark on this one.
I don't remember. I can't remember where that one came from. Was that a return on investment? Or was that investment? I don't remember who mentioned that one. Now watch, it's going to be me, but.
I'm going to go back and watch the tape.
Wow.
All right, we'll come.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't remember that. I mean, I don't remember this either. But I tell you what it makes me think, Ryan, is, is that as we think about, one of the questions that has come up in the past is, why can't we live stream some of our classrooms, right? And while there may be some, HR contractual considerations there, I do know that we didn't have that there's a finance component to being able to fund the technology that would allow us to do that. So because teachers can't be stuck in front of a computer screen while they're in a classroom. So having the technology that allows them to move around and be viewed and also to be heard. I think that that's what this made me think of when I saw it just now. Although, to Mr. Bravo's point, I can't remember where this came from, previously. But I'd love for us to be able to have, because when Dr. James was talking about, as you think through this down the road, this technology may allow us to offer electives that we wouldn't otherwise be able to offer, because we may have 17 kids across the district that want to take a certain class. So we can't offer it at 6 different schools. But if we have this kind of technology, you start to get to that. Well, okay, I could have one teacher that can teach 17 kids or 22 kids across the entire district, and they could do these electives, sort of via this this streaming platform. So again, that's where my head kind of went when I saw that just now. But yeah, check the tape.
I will, but that's still helpful. That's great. So this one's developed. We'll just kind of revise this one in developing. The next item is a creative financial reporting system for equity-related reporting. I'll clean that up. But this really results to the board-directed racial equity policy and reporting mechanisms, and it also goes to our 3 and 3. And I have not had an operations team meeting since then. I need to schedule that. So I'll put some notes in here. So what I need to do is I need to schedule an operations team meeting to take the 3 and 3, to take our racial equity policy, and create the reporting mechanisms as a result. And so we might have 3 to 6 reporting components. And are we meeting our goals? Are we exceeding our goals? So I need to create this. Let's give me some feedback on an appropriate time to do that. Target date.
Well, let me ask this. What are the major differences between a financial reporting system for equity-related reporting and creating an equity dashboard that's really based on finances and pupil expenditures and investments in certain areas? Like, for the sustainability of some kind of reporting system, could these not be collapsed into one thing where you can get all of that information? Or what are the differences? What am I missing?
I see them as different. I see them as an equity and transparency spending hub where community board members, stakeholders can go. They can learn how we spend our money transparently, by priority and by initiative, by where title dollars goes. Why does I Promise receive extra monies? Well, it's outside donation. So that's what I see by this first initiative, which is a very large task, but an important one. What I see this as a direct follow-up to our racial equity policy and our 3 and 3, where it has some specific outcomes and goals we need to meet. And I want to design the mechanism in at least from finance committee, we're reporting back to the board. We are doing this, right? So that's what I see as the difference, but I'll pause.
So that's really aligning directly up with the policy and the advanced APS. So is that involving a cross meeting with that committee? So I guess as they develop their plan, any spending that aligns with each item, is that something we are quantifying?
Yes.
That seems like a joint, based on what they're doing. I'm assuming they're doing the same thing as far as just taking the exact policy in the advanced APS document. I didn't get to sit in on that full meeting, but it sounded like that's where they were heading. And I think I'm sure Derek was there because you chaired the meeting, but.
I'm just thinking.
Right. No, totally agree with you, Diana. Totally agree with you. We're in sync.
Yeah, I agree too. And thinking ahead, Ryan, probably there's like that one further step, which is if it's a financial reporting system that's tied directly to the equity policy, to ensure that I'm assuming that we're also spending dollars in the right places to achieve what we've set out in the equity policy, then there also has to be a relationship and timing to the budgeting process. Because if we are reporting out, but we're sort of reporting out after we've already set next year's fiscal budget, and it's kind of too late to prioritize some funding where we want it to go without, really moving things around, then there just needs to be some relationship to the budgeting process as a third step. Or
very good. And you're right there. Our last one that I added is the budget planning for the public, our outward facing budget planning document. Good. So next steps here, and I'm taking over the remaining cells here. I need to copy and paste the headings so I can see them. And I'm putting notes in here. So the next step I need to do is connect with the operations team. And then we need to have, to Diana's point, we need to have a joint meeting probably I would say in a couple months. What does everybody think about that? That puts us, well, I would say I think we can do that. Let's do that by mid-March, because then, to Patrick's point, we can incorporate that in our budget documents come April, May. What does everyone think about this?
I like that.
I think that sounds reasonable, Ryan.
And I'll say this again, because I know we've had this conversation for a couple of years, but I would really like to see the board a little bit more engaged in the budgeting process. And maybe this is a perfect sequitur to that. Like really, and I don't know that they need to be formal budget hearings or something, but they just a process to involve the board so that, again, if we see something that's reported through our equity dashboard or through the financial reporting system, and the board really wants to identify an area where it wants to put some of its priorities. And this ties back to our conversation with the LeBron James Family Foundation and this board's responsibility, if it chooses to plant its flag there, to say we need to put some money around these services, and early enough that it doesn't interfere with administration or operations as they're trying to get a budget together with their departments either. So.
Excellent. Okay. We've got discuss and plan for a potential levy, communicate with staff and community, create a levy timeline and committee. This is really ongoing. This is monthly. This is where do we stand now, Ryan, with our district finances? I think the next I've discussed with you and the board, the next major step in that process is the May 5-year forecast. So by the end of April, we should have a very good idea of what does our ESSER 2.0 funds look like? What does the success and wellness funds increased look like as an assumption, right? With the governor's budget, he has increased the success and wellness funds about $100 million year over year. We don't know exactly how that will shape out by budget timing, but so we need to make some assumptions in our 5-year forecast come May, and then organize accordingly for a November or not. So I'll put next major timing event is May forecast. But we'll do this monthly, at least as a committee. All right, master facilities plan, engage the community for input and identify funding. A report due June 30. I know the superintendent wasn't able to be on tonight, but he started that process of reaching out to vendors. Does the June 30 timing work for everybody? I think that's doable. I think superintendent opined on that. Okay. And then the last item I had was the budget planning document. We added that one after our last meeting. The process to involve the board more, representing and displaying the district priorities. We've started on that internally about what does the public facing document look like and include. There's a couple national models that we're following. And I know Mr. Bravo has talked about board engagement in those budget hearings. I've watched a couple of the finance committee meetings at Columbus Public Schools who actually have budget hearings. And so I've been getting some ideas from them. Cleveland does not have that similar budget hearing process. And so I'll design something and bring it back to the board. Let's see, it's now February. How about I'll design a process and bring it back to the board for a mid-March finance committee. I know this is tedious work, everyone, but I really appreciate the feedback. This is very helpful. Any other items that we want to add? I know this is a fairly short-term look. We can start to think longer term. I really do like that as well. So if there are other longer term items that we want to put on here, let me know. Feel free to add to it.
Well, yeah, well, Ryan, I just want to, I guess, ask a question. I have to make sure, so that the timelines that we're putting in place, are these timelines that you feel confident that we can meet, you know, because, you know, this is speaking just for how I process. I would rather bake in more time and hit the timeline than be in a situation where we're continually having to push back a timeline that we all agreed, you know, would work, you know. So I mean, I know that we're in the middle of a pandemic. I know that we're in a process of getting kids back to school and hiring a superintendent, you know, and so, but while those are important items, you know, I don't want us to lose momentum on this work, you know, and I don't want to lose momentum on equity work as well. But at the same time, I do want to manage expectations. And so, so if you feel like these are timelines that we can meet, then I'm happy to, you know, to go along with that, you know, co-sign it, if you will. You know, but again, you know, I just know that with this work, you know, I don't want us to, I'm reticent to commit to a time, if you're not really, if you don't have a high confidence that we can meet it. And again, you know, we might not meet it for all of these, but I'd like to at least meet the timelines for a majority of them.
I think these are reasonable timelines. I think this first initiative, I don't know that we have to do this work. We have to do this work before next school year. We have to do this work as we're designing a budget, right? It's going to advise the financial priority, the spending, the investment that we have in programs. We need that kind of feedback system. And so I view the first one as one that is probably our single biggest priority for the next level of finance. And where we have this building level dashboard and we have the per pupil spending, like it isn't going to check everyone's boxes for hitting the mark by March 31st, but I know the data exists. If I know the data exists to the extent where I'll have a tool that we can share, it will be refined over time. So I'm doubling down on this March 31st on this dashboard, equity dashboard, spending per pupil, because it needs to advise us, right? It needs to be for the next superintendent in the board in making decision. I think we need that information. The rest of these, I think these are reasonable. Some of these are next steps.
That's what I was going to say. I think a lot of these are offshoots of the very first one, right? If we get that one in place, then this other work, I think, naturally comes from that.
Yes. And we'll contract out the master's facility plan. And if we get feedback that a vendor can't provide that for us by June, then we can advise on that. Well, I appreciate the comments, Dr. Hall. I'll be reasonable, and after we get more into this with the staff, if there's a trouble spot, that's something that we'll report.
I would agree with Val, and I would say the first one and the financial reporting system for the equity policy, just because that's going to start moving very quickly, and we've adopted it. So 3 and 3 has already started. So right. I would say that first one and the financial reporting system. And one of the other components, and I don't know where to add it in, so I'm just going to put a little quick bullet point, is building enrollment on that first one too, which I know you're already doing that, but.
Perfect. Please add that.
By enrollment.
Excellent. I'm going to stop sharing.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here from our last meeting, and so something I jotted down was about census data and reviewing our boundaries. Does that fit in anywhere in our strategic plan?
I remember that, Diana.
Yeah,
Definitely going to be
I
part of
remember that
master
too.
facilities.
it'll be part of master facilities. Let's add that. That's going to be very important based on, let me finish my thought and then I'll go back and add that. It's going to be very important on the master facilities plan, but also decisions that we make. School district enrollment statewide has dropped, and there's been a lot of shift to online instruction. We know that we have a very robust online delivery model, but that doesn't stop school district students from all over Ohio from leaving their public to a charter or an online platform, thinking that it may be more robust. And so there are a number of students that we may get back or we may not. And to your point, Ms. Autry, we definitely need to report on that because it's substantial in some areas. So we'll add that in now. Okay. Wonderful. All right. I had just a quick note on the fiscal calendar. If you're able to take a look at that, we have March. Well, I'll put this in the finance report and for your report, but we have acceptance of tax rates as part of the budget process and the check and balance. And I don't know if you remember, but in previous years, I've sent out the appropriations how-to document. It's just a quick overview of how we budget in schools and what are the appropriate authorities that we have to seek when doing that. It'll be a good exercise and partner to our April budget discussions as we've added to this list. So just wanted to bring that calendar up to remind you what's out there. And that concludes my report for today. Any questions, additions, other subjects we need to add? Okay. Thank you so much for joining tonight. And I know a number of you have other meetings to go to, so good luck with those tonight.
Have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks, guys. All right, bye-bye.